Hey guys, it's Corey from Unified Masters. So, I want to come on and talk a little bit about something. I had a friend contact me the other day saying that she had lost her spirituality and that she needed help. And so I figured there's a lot of people that go through this. I've gone through it numerous times on the spiritual awakening path. And so I wanted to discuss it a little bit. But here's the issue. Well, it's not an issue. It's just the reality. There's no one-size-fits-all answer for why you are disconnected spiritually or you're feeling that. So as I have my guides here very close and we're stretching up into the higher realms, I'm going to pick this apart. I've been picking it apart for about 45 minutes, just kind of sitting here and assimilating the information, and I'll just let it flow. So this will be going a little multi-dimensional because we need to put all the puzzle pieces together to kind of figure out how this can fit into your scenario if you're feeling disconnected. So the first thing I want to reiterate is we never lose our spirituality. So what happens is we can look at it like weather patterns, okay? You go outside and it's completely overcast that day. There's gray clouds everywhere. Does that mean that the sun isn't shining? Well, in one perspective, if you can't see the sun, how do you know the sun is there? But we know that based on just physics, laws, whatever it may be, science, let's just say science, that the sun sets at night and it rises in the day, and that cloud coverage doesn't mean that the sun isn't shining. Okay, so the clouds, why did the clouds arrive? Well, here's where we start to go multi with it. Well, on one level, there's a deep level of healing and integration that needs to happen that requires you to dive into the human. Okay, so we expand into the higher realms to a certain level. Our light body and our soul expands. This expansion process can trigger off a program. It can trigger off a remembrance of something. It basically, let's think of it like this. This analogy works so well in this regard, is that if we want to get mud out of the bottom of a barrel, we fill it up with water until the mud comes up and out. Well, that's what these frequencies are doing, and you are connecting more and more to spirit, is we're filling up the bucket with water. The mud rises to the surface, and it's usually right at that culmination point when you feel completely disconnected, when the mud is rising up or very near the top. And this disconnection process is because this is what we have to do. We have to dive into the human to clear out the human. We dive into the angelic realm to meet our guides and to live in those higher frequencies until it triggers off something. And then we dive back into the human, because the human aspects, and when I say human, we're speaking of the ego, the unconscious, the distortion, the overlay, all the blah, 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 blah that comes with the human condition. We dive into the human to clear that out, especially depending on how much muck you're going through. One can also call this the dark night of the soul, which is, let's just call it dark night. It's not a dark night of the soul. It's a dark night of the human. The soul is not dark. The soul just is. But this is a dark night of the human aspect, where you have to kind of feel that disconnect to sift through the garbage and to write it out. But what can delay the process of healing or illumination in the dark night is running from the dark night. So if we look at a storm, when a storm comes in, you have a choice point. You can either sit there and let the storm pass. You could run from the storm, you can run parallel to the storm, or you can run directly right into it. So if we think of the dark night in the analogy of a storm coming, the more that you are running from the storm, like the storm catches up, but the longer it takes to kind of get out of that storm. Think of it as the storm's chasing you. So what you do is you run right into it. You embrace all the negative feelings that are coming up. You embrace all the pain, all the, disconnect, everything like that. And you allow it to overtake you, knowing that you will get out of it. And so once again, this is a complicated process because a lot of us have delved into those realms quite a few times and have been able to stay stuck there, because at some point in time too, we need to get up and out of it. And so this is where, you know, your first time going through a dark night, it can last a long time. My first dark night lasted a few years. At the time I didn't know it was a dark night, but being able to reflect back now and know more, it was a long dark night. But the more that we start to go through these phases, these illumination phases, because essentially it's a breaking down. It is a complete, you know, tearing down of all of our belief systems and all of our programs. We land at this point when we can breathe again, and that is the illumination phase. And that's when you come out, you know, stronger, wiser, a lot more humble on the other side if you've wrapped up the lesson and learned it. And that's you bringing back that spark, that ignition point. The other thing too is that I'm just listening for a sec. Is through these dark nights we also can lose guides. Okay, so as we were going through a dark night process, we might be grieving because we are losing working with a certain guide. So I know this has happened to me a few times, especially when I've delved into truth seeking. This happened recently when I discovered some things out about you know, the archangels. Okay, a lot of guides left. A lot of my guides left. And it's landed me at this point in time where I'm back working with my guardian angels again. But this happens, this like dark night illumination phase happens when you see that there's a certain guide that you're working with that you may have karma with, or you're discovering some truth about. And when you do, and that guide chooses to step out and gets replaced with a new guide, there might be a sense of loss or mourning that is associated with that can feel like a disconnect from spirit, because you're so used to working with, you know, a certain guide. But we sign up, okay, with soul contracts, we sign up to work with these guides for a certain period of time, and once we've achieved what we need to achieve with that guide will go and we will be replaced with a new guide. This is almost, the feeling of this is the equivalent of a soul retrieval. And this is another aspect I'll dive into with why you might be feeling disconnected, is, you know, receiving back lost pieces of ourselves. So when we get fragmented, we then, you know, when we lose a piece of our soul, another piece can step in to take that place, a lot like a guide, that might not be there for our highest good. So what happens is, when we are calling back those pieces, those aspects, there might be an aspect of you that is ready to leave, like a guide that's ready to go. And when that aspect of you goes, you can feel that dark night or that disconnect, losing your spirituality. You can mourn it like a depression. You might not be fully aware of this happening, as once again, there's layers and dimensions to this about why this occurs. But essentially, you've wrapped up the lesson from that piece, whether it be a guide, a soul fragment, so on and so forth, that you end up, once you have learned that lesson, it leaves, and then you pull back that original piece. But we always want to make sure we are filling in that gap again with your original piece and calling that aspect forward and back, or calling that aspect back to you, and bringing that in and integrating it. And that integration phase too can feel a little wonky. So you feel very not like yourself. You might actually, when that aspect comes back, you might actually have to review a time of your life where that aspect has left. So this happened to me recently. I called back an aspect, and there's about, you know, this aspect went away. I got fragmented probably about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And when that aspect came back, I was mourning the loss of the aspect that I had there, but then I started to have this review time where this soul piece spoke to me just through my day-to-day. And it's not like it was vocalizing for me, but it was just more reconnecting with that aspect. I started to see things in an interesting light. And this is a recent video I discussed about the MCT wound, was learning all about that, which now takes time in that integration process to bring this, to assimilate this information back, and then to allow this aspect of me to feel safe being here again. The reason why that aspect left in the first place was because there was some traumatic experience that fragmented me. that shattered me, and this piece chose to leave, or it was stolen, whatever, however we want to look at this from a perspective standpoint. But the idea is that then we want this piece to stay, and so we have to make it feel like home again, and that's creating that connection to that, which means that all the lessons and that aspect of you, the emotions, the behaviors, and once it comes back in and it integrates, it takes time towards rediscovering yourself, relearning yourself, and through this you might feel disconnected for a little bit of time because you're repairing that connection once again, and this connection isn't always overnight. So the rewiring process takes time, and this is another important thing when we are going through these disconnects, is to recognize that right now we are at a moment in time where we are completely rewiring our etheric body, and we're recreating our reality and the human blueprint. So these updates and these upgrades happen all the time, where what happens is it's like getting a new motherboard and putting it in the computer, and then now you got to rewire everything. And I don't know too much about computers, but that's kind of what's coming through right now, is that rewiring process. It takes time for that to happen, and we also want to support that. We want to support our body 110% through that entire process. So we want to be eating things like high vibrational foods. We want to be drinking lots of water, doubling down on the self-care and the self-love, because that is going to help to support the rewiring process. If we think of electrical current, so the term that came up the other day was quantum hydration. Okay, and this is that as we are bringing our new bodies online and our crystalline body is activating and we are phasing up in the evolutionary process of the human, we want to support the body in the best conditions possible for the new blueprints and for the new ways that our light body starts to work and our crystalline body is coming online as we are stepping into, the plasma body, the diamond light body, it starts to move on from there. But through this, we want to support it in the best way possible. And through that is what I read was what I heard was quantum hydration. Quantum hydration is things like drinking lots of electrolytes right now, and also really, really staying hydrated, because the thing is that as we are going quantum and multidimensional, to be able to exist in all those realms at once and being able to perform the duties we need to and making those connection points to all these different aspects, our bodies need to be supported through that. So, society has kind of gone a little bit off kilter, at least here in the United States, and the way I was raised, with how we are to take care of our bodies nutritionally. And so we really have to let go a lot of the old ways of eating. There's people that in this community that are really they're on top of their diets. Now me, I was raised on Jack in the Box. I was raised on Diet Coke. I was raised on energy drinks. I was raised on the most disgusting way of being able to eat and live. And so adjusting to this new way of eating and this new way of living has been just that, an adjustment. It's taken time. And so what's happening though is that we want to be able to make sure that our bodies are set up 100% for success as part of this rewiring process, as we're reconnecting these points etherically, so we could be able to operate at the best version of ourselves. And there's some people that are like, oh, I'm doing all this, I'm doing I'm eating a strict vegan diet, or I'm well, the thing is too is that through these transition points, your body's going to need different things in order to feel fully connected. And so, like for me, I'm not one to exercise. I'm not one to go to the gym. I never have been. There's just an interesting stigma with exercising with me. And that's just stuff that I was raised with. Well, the past little bit of time, I've been feeling extremely disconnected. And what was happening was that I had stuck energy in my body, and as much energy work as I can do on my body and all that, there's also other ways of being able to get that energy fluidly moving through the body, and one of those was exercise. And so now I'm doing stretching and yoga every single day, as well as a light workout. And I find when I do that, I'm way more connected than I've ever been. I actually vibrate higher into dimensions, and I'm able to see better. I'm able to communicate better with my guides, because once again, it's like the docile phase of awakening, or what I call the meat sack phase of awakening, that I have a few videos on about being a meat sack, is that's that really deep integration process when these energies come in and flood you and beat the crap out of you, and you just got to kind of sleep through it, through that deep integration. Well, at some point in time, to get the energy moving and the new template online, we got to get into motion. So we got to get the body moving, go for a brisk walk, do some, really light exercises, some cardio, whatever you can do towards getting your blood pumping. You're going to get your cells to regenerate faster, and you're also going to be repairing all of those connection points that are within you. It's something that I found helping me a lot as I'm feeling more and more disconnected. The other thing too is to recognize that if you are feeling disconnected from spirit, you are disconnected from the spark that is you. And so really, looking at finding spirituality in different ways. Because the thing is that some of us might be looking for, now zoom out for a sec. Everything is spiritual. When you start to see the divine spark within you, and you're living in those higher realms and you're not in the human or in the ego, you see spirit in everything. So no matter what realm you go into, you can see spirit there. Unless, there's something that triggers off an ego aspect of you, and then you can kind of collapse back into the human for a little while, which is necessary towards clearing more and more of that out. But ask yourself, where am I finding spirit in my environments? Because the thing is that inspiration can come. Now, inspiration has to come from within, but it can be triggered by the external. So there might be something you see or something you hear that triggers something within you that ignites that spark of creation that is you, which that divine spark is God's source, creator energy living within you. That is your internal creator being coming online. So I ask, where are you looking for inspiration? In what environments are you finding spirit? You might not be finding spirit in those environments because there's an uneven flow of energy. So if you land yourself, a lot of us, so when we step into the supporter role, I've found that if you are not balanced in your energy, you can overgive to everybody and do everything towards maintaining that balance within and filling yourself up. But at some point in time, you got to stop giving so much. Now, the journey is different for every single person. And once we, land into, I know that there's going to be a point in time where we can just kind of go online with supporter roles 24/7 and there's an even flow of energy. But a lot of us have to figure out how this flow of energy is working. So for me, for instance, I was suiting up and showing up, and I was making content every single day. I was being of service for other people. I was also giving 100% unconditionally in my relationship. And I was able to pay the bills, and this was just not too long ago. But what happened was I reached this point where I was completely disconnected. And it's because I was completely out of balance. And I was still practicing self-care, so I was taking care of myself more. Everything seemed balanced, but there was something very unfluid or very stuck about the energy that was coming about. Well, first of it had to do with diving into certain topics that were just creating a lot of discord in the spirit world for me, and also just a lot of discord within. It had to do with guides, but it also had to do with the amount of giving and receiving. So I had stepped so much in the masculine role that I was giving, and action, but I wasn't receiving what I needed from my environment on all levels. And so this now required this disconnect, because I had to pull forth that feminine aspect, heal more of the feminine, remove some more of the masculine distortions, and really step more into that being phase, which was that meat sack integration phase that I've been going through for a little bit of time now, and it's getting better. But I had to start to fill up my own cup, and I had to start doing things differently towards connecting more and receiving more guidance, especially after losing a guide. Quite a few guides actually, but I got some new guides that came in that are really awesome to work with right now. And so because of this, it's landed me at an opportunity to change up my routine, especially since, I've been discussing lately change. This is what 2020 is about. It's about change, but also I'm a life path 5, and so that's what I crave is change. So I had to build a new routine. So, I've delved into different ways of doing things, a lot like, Phil Good's being a dot. Okay. I kind of was a dot, but I turned into a lump too. So what it was completely disconnected from everything, but also then taking no action. And it taught me a lot about that divine feminine receptivity, that magnetism that was within. But because of that, I for myself had to build a little bit of a routine and a little bit of structure to get back on track. Now, the thing is that I was going from this like no routine, no structure, no schedule to why would I need a routine and structure? Well, because I still needed something in my life that was a part of this intentional creation. So when it comes down to it, when I'm on autopilot, I'm allowing other things to work. I can create gaps in space to allow things to work through me to then create for me. As we know, the universe doesn't like to waste space. And so if you are not in full control of who you are and in full intentional creation, things can be created through you. And so I found that I needed to create just a little bit of structure in my life, and it was a morning routine to be more intentional with how my days were going to go about. So if you wake up and just think that bliss is going to be bliss because that's what's deserved to you, part of intentional creation is that no matter how you wake up and you take your power back, you intentionally set yourself to have a certain day and to live in a certain vibration, and then doing what you can towards staying in that vibration throughout the day. And so I would wake up and I'd be kind of blasé because I've been integrating or I've been clearing a lot in sleep, but I hadn't been intentionally setting the tone towards doing what I could towards popping my vibration up so I could have the best day possible for myself. And so I had to build some routine. And because of that, it brought my aspects up. I was able to start living in the higher realms. I was able to call forth more of my, my seventh dimensional and higher guides. And I was able to start connecting more with those higher beings, which is now easier to do throughout the day as I've been practicing this more, going into meditation more, doing a lot more breath work, being conscious with my breath, slowing down, really fine-tuning my frequency has helped towards finding that spark of creation within. And now here's the thing, is that I still got a lot of doubt programming, a lot of self-sabotage programming, and a lot of things that I'm still working through. And these aspects, I thought at one point in time, I had completely worked through. Oh yeah, I'm done with that healing journey. But as soon as you are done with that level of healing journey, you'd be surprised when it comes back around and there's more levels and layers that you need to clear. And a lot of this could be environmental too. So it could be that there is someone else within your frequency range or in your bubble, in your living space, that could be running a lot of self-doubt programming that isn't yours, and you're picking up on it, and it's really affecting your energy field. And this is where sometimes we need to cut off certain contracts and we need to leave certain environments for a period of time, because that self-doubt could be funneling and creating more of this disconnect within. Because if you are not, if someone's energy field is triggering something within you, obviously that frequency is still triggering something within you. But there's also a moment in time too where, especially if it's someone you care about, you might be empathetically feeling what they're going through and picking up their thoughts, picking up their beliefs, picking up their distortions, and because of that, then harnessing it and taking it in as your own. And it could start to bring you down and wear you down. And this is where sometimes, even though if you love someone unconditionally, or you feel like, these people are there for your highest good, sometimes what's going on with them energetically is actually bringing you down more than you know. And this is where you have to use your tool of discernment of knowing whether or not what to do in that circumstance. And that's just another way that there could be a disconnect. Now, I went into all the different ways why you might be disconnected from spirituality. So how do we make that connection point again? And this is why I'm out here right now, is unification. And if you are having issues connecting with humans, okay, and I'm speaking to this from the human level because I have this moment where I'm like, yeah, I need to unify, but I just don't want to go be around people. Go connect with nature. Get out, go connect with some animals. So like we're right here by a pond and the ducks come up all the time. And when the ducks come up, I start to connect with them. And I connect with the trees and I connect with the land and I just listen. And sometimes they'll speak, sometimes it's just a frequency feeling. But what it does is it helps to kind of gather in all of those aspects, especially my elemental aspects, and to connect with them deeper and deeper on a deeper level. And because of that, I discover that I'm so much more than the human. And when I discover that I'm so much more than the human, I start to ignite. And I start to feel that passion and that creativity, and I feel inspired to do something. And for me lately, like the inspiration has just been playing music more, because there's so much magic in music for me and in that creation point, to where now I'm like, man, do I really want to be, making YouTube videos and doing all this, really questioning more and more of my path, because that's what happens when I call in aspects too, is and I start to go through these frequency changes, as I start to find out more and more and more and more and more and more of who I am and what I really love and enjoy to do. And so it's really, there's many different things that you can do towards building that connection point again from within. And you just have to ask yourself, what can I do today that's just a little bit different? What can I do towards connecting and unifying more with myself? And sometimes that requires just being kind to someone else and being of service unconditionally. Sometimes that can be having to set a healthy boundary and say no to everybody and just be there selfishly with yourself. And recognize that, sometimes we step into the supporter role and the spiritual ego tells us, well, this ascension process won't happen if I, don't support others for a certain period of time, or we think we're so important that without our contribution that the ascension won't happen. Here's a reminder. The ascension won't happen if you don't take care of yourself. Plain and simple. There's a self level to this, and there's also a collective level. But the collective can rise if we all focus on self. If we're out there trying to save the collective and save others, but we're not saving ourselves, we're doing this entire process an injustice, because it's all about self. It's all about self, and the micro then affects the macro, and it extends outward. And so, what are you doing towards taking care of yourself today? How are you honoring who you are unconditionally? Are you setting healthy boundaries in your environment? Are you putting others before yourself? What aspects of you are you neglecting on a day-to-day basis? And what can you do towards rebuilding that connection point? Is it eating healthier? Is it loving yourself unconditionally? Is it going out on a date? Is it talking with a stranger? Is it petting an animal? Is it hugging a tree? Is it taking a moment to look at yourself in the mirror and to tell yourself you love yourself unconditionally? Is it giving yourself a moment towards like giving yourself a massage? Because that's another thing too, is we can neglect our bodies and neglect that we got to love ourselves, and that means loving our soul but also loving our body. So how are you talking to your body? How are you talking to your spirit? How are you talking to your soul? What are you consuming? There's so many checkpoints on the list of what to look at, but at the end of the day, it's very individualized, and it's very multidimensional in what you can do to resolve these issues and why it may be happening. There's many more layers too, including reliving traumas that you might not be consciously going through, but you might be going through energetically, and so that fog is creating a disconnect. So with that, I'm going to go into a little bit of a light language. I've been working a lot closer and closer with my Arcturian aspects and the Arcturian Council of Light. And so, and my angels, I'm back with working with my angels again, because they brought forth a very important message last night. So I'm going to bring the Arcturians through. We're going to go into a healing light language towards bringing that spark back within. Ya tohni to kuno patatio that's just the tonon to rukuto sitio that you o tatatono katatio toro to sakita tatoni here tani to the motoro poto kitiati so to matani ataho Botatio katatano hotoro nio satatono hio tatatane oko toro siutana tahitiomna to hotoro Moheo tatato toya sihi chatono matare io kana patatio tatato nut usupidio tatato koro Tatateki o tatato soro to te ona hatitoko Boyo tatatako dari itaku nono patataki to do city tayo bototoko. Yung matatakita ko no patakito tara to kono torati iwarate hisa oroko parat ikitato no udoro kishiso ukuto to homyuka taretio. They're just saying right now, remember the love that you are. Find that spark within. Uncross yourself. Allow for more energetic fluidity in your day-to-day, and being mindful of what you are exposing yourself to. And follow your heart and allow that truth to speak louder than the truth of the mind and what others speak of. Fill yourself with joy and connect with that aspect, and you will connect with us further. Ground yourself and be in your body, connecting to the higher realms. It is quite a blissful experience. You came here to be human. And as there's much wisdom to learn from the higher realms, there's so much you can learn from being a human. Don't forget to be a human. So I'm just thanking the Arcturians for coming forth as I disconnect from them right now. So just remember to take it easy on yourself. These moments and these phases are quite frequent on the journey, and they phase in and out, these moments of extreme connectedness and unification, and then spilling into these moments of complete separation and complete disconnect. Well, that's where when we expansion and collapse occurs, we expand to a point where we trigger off something within, and then we collapse, and then we do that until we can hold our frequency there, until we dispel more and more and more out of ourselves and out of our conscious, subconscious, out of the human. And so allowing yourself to experience that expansion and that collapse is integral towards this experience, because as you are going through that process, you're actually birthing new versions of yourself. You're birthing new realities, birthing new galaxies. And that's a part of the birthing process. Is the vision I'm getting is the mother letting that baby out and screaming in agony and pain and cussing out the entire world because of how much pain she's in. But once she gets to see the life that she just gave, and that she birthed, in that entire process of what her body went through towards creating that child, that's kind of a similar analogy that's coming forth right now about the journey of awakening is birthing new versions of ourselves and expanding and allowing ourselves to do that, and not judging the process. I'm pretty, I don't know because I'm not a woman, but if we look at a higher perspective of a pregnant woman, would you ever judge her body for the changes that her body needs to go through and toward creating that child? From an open heart, pure approach, no. Because you understand that it's a part of the process, and that is a big part of the process for some of us that are holding on to a lot of ego distortion. Is we need to let go of that distortion, and it needs to get broken down, and we need to break open to break through, and to allow that to compartmentalize into such a small portion. Like, if our ego is this big, we want to collapse it to a point that is extremely small, so then when it does pop up, we compartmentalize it, we bring it up, and we resolve it until the point is that our soul is larger than our ego, and the soul can take the wheel, and then we can be in full aligned with our truth and our love, and we can finally experience and create everything we so desire. And these disconnect points too is your body getting prepared for everything you desire. So all the intentions you've been setting, everything the universe wants to give you, requires a very intense rewiring process and an upgrade process that you need to go through and disconnect from, so you can finally receive everything you so desire. So if the universe is telling you to move, and it's telling you to pivot left and you're not pivoting left, you might have to go through some experiences to get to the point where you finally listen. And this is more of that alignment process of honoring our soul and honoring our higher self, our higher aspects, which are just within. These aspects are just within. We're just tapping into them more and more and more. And so there's a lot more information coming through right now with why you might be disconnecting spiritually. But I'm gonna sum that up there actually at 35 minutes. And so I love you all unconditionally. Much love and respect to everyone out there in the Webiverse. Remember to just take a moment to breathe today. And I think this is a very important thing that the Arcturians have been teaching me lately, is to really slow it down and to be extremely mindful of the breath, conscious breathing more and more. But so for me, when I make a cup of coffee now, because I still drink coffee and I don't judge myself, I love coffee. I love coffee. I take a moment when I make my coffee and I smell it and I sip it slow and I enjoy it. And that's something that's really been helping me to connect is consciously, meditatively living every single day. Kind of a mindfulness approach towards savoring every moment of the day really helps to find that magic and that gratitude for every moment that exists here, and that helps me to connect more too. And so I offer you I offer the opportunity for you to be able to do that for yourself. It can take a little bit of time towards practicing this. So even just taking 10 or 15 minutes out of the day and being like, okay, this is going to be my mindful 15 minutes. And I'm just going to spend this time being with these moments and these seconds. And I'm just going to soak it all in. What you're doing is you're actually consciously tuning into every cell of your body. And you are allowing that gratitude to seep into every cell and let it permeate through your entire being. And so practicing all of those moments, once again, micro, macro, can create such a profound effect on who you are and helping in the change process. Because when you can unconditionally love every second you're alive, you're unconditionally loving every aspect of your entire being. You're unconditionally loving the world, and you are living in such a high state of gratitude that you are allowing everything you desire to come in at a faster and faster and faster rate. So it's actually going to increase and amplify your manifestations. And so kind of interesting that that's coming through right now. Beautiful message from the Arcturians as they're still around. Even though I disconnect, that aspect of me is triggered and activated right now, so it's coming out more. So anyways, much love and respect to everyone out there. I love you all unconditionally. If you haven't, click that button below to get notified of when I produce new content. And all my links are in the description box if you want to book an energy session or a light language activation. And so with that, I will see you all on the other side. Namaste.